The movie industry is, of course, a very powerful tool, not only for entertaining, but also for teaching. And for many, many years, going back several generations now, the movie industry has always portrayed Christians, well, at least they portrayed them early on as very noble and very well-intentioned people, but people who aren't able to really face and deal with real evil when it, actually enters the world, the real world. In other words, Christian people and preachers in particular are great for the role that they're meant to play, which is a marginal role, confined mostly to the afterlife and telling people that they ought to be good, but not really being able to handle real world evil, because some people can't be persuaded by words. They have to be confronted with weapons. And I think that portrayal has been a long-term role. It's shaped the way Americans think about church and the way they think about dealing with real world evil. When it comes to real world evil, you need to hand it off from the church and people who are following God, and you need to hand it off to people who are willing to do whatever it takes in order to be able to solve the world's problems. And that goes very much with the American way of life and the American approach on how to solve the world's problems. But it's not a Christian view. The Christian view is that it was set by Jesus himself when Jesus talked about and demonstrated in his own life that confronting real world evil is the responsibility of a people who love God, and God intends for his people to be out there in the real world facing the real world difficulties that come along with that. And that the approach that's been taken, not just by America, but by kingdom after kingdom, government after government, wannabe governments, and wannabe rulers and wannabe powerful people have taken for, all of humanity's history, and that is to resort to violence, to resort to pure, raw power in order to achieve their ends. And you can see this reflected in movies. Go back to all the way to the old John Wayne movies. It wasn't that they said Christians were stupid or they were ignorant or they were poor intentioned, but they just weren't able to face the real trouble when real trouble came to town. Of course, you have Gary Cooper and the Sergeant York movie, which confronted head on the idea that a Christian, should not engage in those kinds of violent acts as a way to solve the world's problems, and confronted it head on and actually challenged that view that, killing in the name of your country is okay as long as it's sanctioned by the government. And you got Gary Cooper doing that. Then you got Gary Cooper doing High Noon, which is a classic movie. You have several, of course, all the new Rambo movies. They're all, they're great as far as they go. I was thinking of one that was the Christian people went to Thailand in order to try and help the people who were poor and struggling and needed health care and things like that. And, of course, Rambo had to come to their rescue because they were taken captive by this over-the-top tyrant who basically was running his own little empire within the country. And, of course, they didn't have the power and ability to do anything because they hadn't armed themselves. But by the end of the movie, they're able to pick up whatever it's at hand and be able to bash the heads of their enemies in, because that's where real salvation comes from. That's where real freedom is provided by armed men standing guard on the walls of our country, so to speak. And so I just wanted to say that I think Jesus has something to say in contrast to all that. His going to a cross was meant to challenge the world's view and where real power lies. Because I think we think of power in terms of your ability to just brute force your way through the world, the law of tooth and claw, so to speak. But real power is found in truth and love. And that's one of those things that Gandhi was able to pick up on from Jesus and to be able to put to work in the real world. And when you see the outcome, you have to be impressed with what's going on. Just something to think about. And I'd be glad to engage you, but you got to think, with all the anti-heroes that we've got these days, that they're taking, the devil's son, so to speak, Hellboy, and turning him into a hero that saves us from all these troublesome beasts climbing out of the darkest pit of hell. And in that case, they're directly challenging the ability of the church to face real evil in the world. Stop and think about that and what that means for the world, and why there's so much fear in America today, and why every time there's an economic upheaval, there's also an uptick in buying weapons, because people are afraid and they want to do something about it, and they're being told that the church doesn't have any answers. If they want to find answers, they got to find them in the weapons that they can surround themselves with. That has devastating consequences for a society, but it has devastating consequences for the world when we adopt that kind of thinking. My YouTube channel is Stifling Jesus. Please subscribe, and then let's engage in conversation about this. Thank you.